Welcome to a journey through time where ancient voices speak to modern hearts. In our fast-paced digital world filled with notifications, deadlines, and endless distractions, we often find ourselves searching for meaning, for peace, for answers to life's most fundamental questions. What might surprise you is that some of the most profound wisdom we need today was discovered over 2,000 years ago. In the quiet contemplation of ancient Greek and Roman philosophers, these weren't just abstract thinkers lost in ivory towers. They were real people facing real challenges: war, loss, political upheaval, personal struggles. Yet from their experiences, they distilled timeless truths that remain as relevant today as they were in ancient Athens or Rome. Today, we'll explore 6 remarkable minds whose insights can transform how we view our modern lives. Why does ancient philosophy still matter? Because human nature hasn't changed. We still struggle with fear, anxiety, relationships, purpose, and mortality. We still seek happiness, meaning, and peace. The external world has evolved dramatically, but the internal landscape of human experience remains remarkably constant. These ancient thinkers offer us a compass for navigating the complexities of being human. As we journey together through these teachings, allow yourself to truly listen. Let these words settle into your consciousness like seeds in fertile soil. Ancient philosophy isn't meant to be merely intellectual exercise. It's practical wisdom for living well. Each philosopher we'll encounter today offers not just ideas, but tools for transformation. So find a comfortable position, take a deep breath, and prepare to discover how ancient wisdom can illuminate your modern path. Let's begin our exploration with perhaps the most famous philosopher in history, a man who changed the world by admitting how little he knew. Socrates, the unexamined life. In the bustling marketplace of ancient Athens, there lived a man who would revolutionize human thought not through grand theories, but through simple questions. Socrates, the stonemason's son who became philosophy's greatest teacher, left us no written works, yet his influence echoes through every philosophical tradition that followed. Socrates once declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." These words, spoken as he faced death rather than abandon his principles, contain within them a revolutionary idea about what it means to be truly human. But what did he mean by an examined life? And why did he consider it so essential? To understand this, we must first grasp what Socrates meant by examination. For him, it wasn't enough to simply go through the motions of daily existence, working, eating, sleeping, repeating. He believed that a meaningful human life required constant self-inquiry, a relentless questioning of our beliefs, assumptions, and motivations. Know thyself, inscribed at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, became his life's mission. Socrates approached life like a skilled physician examining a patient. He probed beneath surface appearances, asking uncomfortable questions. Why do you believe what you believe? What evidence supports your convictions? Are you living according to your deepest values or merely following the crowd? This process of examination wasn't meant to be comfortable. Truth rarely is. Consider how this applies to our modern lives. We live in an age of unprecedented information and choice, yet many of us move through life on autopilot. We absorb opinions from social media, make decisions based on impulse or social pressure, and rarely pause to ask ourselves the fundamental questions. What do I truly value? Am I living authentically? Are my actions aligned with my deepest beliefs? The Socratic method of questioning can be transformative when applied to our daily decisions. Before making your next major choice, whether it's about career, relationships, or lifestyle, try asking yourself the questions Socrates might have asked. What assumptions am I making? What evidence do I have for these beliefs? Am I choosing from wisdom or from fear? Socrates also taught us about the wisdom of humility. His famous declaration, "I know that I know nothing," wasn't false modesty, but profound insight into the nature of knowledge and wisdom. In our age of information overload, where everyone seems to have strong opinions about everything, Socratic humility offers a refreshing alternative. It suggests that true wisdom begins with acknowledging the limits of our understanding. This doesn't mean becoming paralyzed by uncertainty, but rather approaching life with intellectual humility and openness to learning. When we admit we might be wrong about something, we create space for growth, for new perspectives, for deeper understanding. The most confident people are often those who are most willing to question their own beliefs. The examined life also requires courage, the courage to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our world. Socrates chose death rather than stop asking difficult questions because he understood that a life without honest self-reflection is merely existence, not truly living. He challenges us to be equally courageous in our own self-examination, even when it leads us to uncomfortable realizations about our choices, our relationships, or our character. In practical terms, living an examined life might involve regular periods of reflection, perhaps through journaling, meditation, or deep conversations with trusted friends. It means being willing to admit when we're wrong, to change our minds when presented with better evidence, and to continuously align our actions with our evolving understanding of what truly matters. Socrates reminds us that the quality of our lives is determined not by external circumstances, but by the depth of our self-understanding and the integrity with which we live, according to our examined values. His legacy invites us to transform our daily existence from mere routine into a conscious journey of growth, wisdom, and authentic living. As we move forward in our exploration of ancient wisdom, carry with you Socrates' fundamental question: are you truly examining your life or simply living it? The answer may determine whether you're merely existing or truly alive. Plato's shadows and ideals. From the questioning spirit of Socrates emerges his most brilliant student, Plato, whose philosophical vision would shape Western thought for millennia. Plato didn't just continue his teacher's work, he transformed it, creating a comprehensive understanding of reality, knowledge, and human potential that speaks directly to our modern search for meaning and truth. Perhaps no philosophical concept is as immediately recognizable yet profound as Plato's allegory of the cave. Picture this scene with me. Imagine prisoners chained in an underground cave since birth, facing a wall where shadows dance. These shadows cast by objects behind them near a fire represent their entire reality. They name the shadows, debate their meanings, and compete to predict which shadow will appear next. To them, these shadows are not representations. They are reality itself. But what happens when one prisoner breaks free? He discovers the fire, the objects casting shadows, and eventually emerges into sunlight to see the true world above. The shadows he once thought were real now appear as mere reflections of a deeper reality. When he returns to share this revelation, his fellow prisoners reject his testimony. They prefer their familiar shadows to the challenging truth he offers. This allegory speaks powerfully to our modern condition. In Plato's vision, most of us live like those prisoners, mistaking appearances for reality, surface phenomena for deeper truth. We become attached to our limited perspectives, our cultural assumptions, our inherited beliefs, without questioning whether they represent the whole picture. Consider how this applies to our digital age. Social media algorithms create echo chambers where we see only information that confirms our existing beliefs. We mistake these curated realities for the complete truth. News feeds, carefully designed to capture our attention, present fragments of complex realities as complete stories. Like Plato's prisoners, we often debate these shadows without questioning the deeper structures that create them. The cave allegory also illuminates our relationship with consumerism and material pursuits. We chase after possessions, status symbols, and external validations, thinking they will bring lasting happiness. But Plato would suggest these are shadows of deeper human needs: the need for meaning, connection, beauty, and truth. The successful escape from the cave involves recognizing that our deepest fulfillment comes not from acquiring more shadows, but from aligning with what he called the good, the ultimate source of truth and beauty. Plato's concept of an ideal society outlined in The Republic offers another lens for examining our modern world. He envisioned a society structured around justice, where each person contributes according to their natural abilities and inclinations. While his specific political proposals may seem outdated, his underlying insight remains relevant. A truly flourishing society requires both individual excellence and collective harmony. In our current context, where social division and inequality create widespread tension, Plato's vision challenges us to consider what justice really means. He argued that justice in society mirrors justice in the individual soul, a harmony between reason, spirit, and desire. A just society, like a just person, is one where each part fulfills its proper function in service of the whole. This doesn't mean rigid hierarchy or suppression of individuality. Rather, it suggests that true freedom and fulfillment come when we discover our authentic calling and contribute our unique gifts to the common good. How different might our workplaces, communities, and political systems be if we organize them around this principle of each person, contributing their best rather than merely competing for personal advantage? Plato's theory of forms offers perhaps his most profound contribution to understanding reality and human potential. He proposed that beyond the physical world lies a realm of perfect forms or ideas, eternal, unchanging patterns of which material things are imperfect copies. The form of justice, beauty, truth, and good exist as perfect standards against which we measure earthly approximations. This might sound abstract, but it addresses a fundamental human experience, our sense that there are universal standards of beauty, justice, and truth that transcend cultural differences. When we feel moved by a sunset, inspired by an act of courage, or outraged by injustice, we're responding to what Plato would call our soul's recognition of these eternal forms. Understanding this concept can transform how we approach personal growth and creativity. If perfect forms exist, then our task as humans is to approximate them as closely as possible in our thoughts, actions, and creations. The artist strives to capture true beauty. The leader seeks to embody justice. The seeker pursues truth. Our limitations don't negate the value of this pursuit. They make it meaningful. In practical terms, Plato's philosophy encourages us to look beyond immediate appearances to deeper realities. When facing challenges, we can ask, what deeper patterns or principles are at work here? What would the ideal response look like? How can I align my actions with truth, beauty, and goodness rather than merely reacting to surface circumstances? Plato also emphasizes the transformative power of education, which he saw not as filling empty vessels with information, but as drawing out the wisdom already present within each soul. This perspective can revolutionize how we approach learning and teaching in our own lives. True education awakens us to reality rather than indoctrinating us with opinions. As you reflect on Plato's insights, consider, what shadows have you been mistaking for reality? What deeper truths might you discover if you question your assumptions? How might your life change if you oriented yourself toward the eternal forms of truth, beauty, and good rather than their fleeting approximations? Plato's vision reminds us that we have the potential to transcend our limitations and participate in something far greater than ourselves. Aristotle, the golden mean, and human flourishing. Where Plato soared into the realm of eternal forms, his student Aristotle brought philosophy down to earth, focusing on the practical question of how to live well in this world. Aristotle's approach to ethics and happiness remains one of the most practical and psychologically sophisticated systems ever developed, offering concrete guidance for navigating the complexities of human existence. Aristotle began with a simple yet profound observation: every action aims at some good. When we eat, we aim at nourishment. When we study, we aim at knowledge. When we love, we aim at connection. But what is the ultimate good, the goal for which all other goals exist? Aristotle called this ultimate goal eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but meaning something closer to human flourishing or living excellently. This concept of eudaimonia differs radically from our modern understanding of happiness as a fleeting emotional state. Aristotle wasn't talking about moments of pleasure or temporary satisfaction, but about a complete life lived in accordance with human excellence. It's the difference between feeling happy and being truly fulfilled. To understand what enables human flourishing, Aristotle developed his famous doctrine of the golden mean. He observed that most virtues represent a balance between extremes of excess and deficiency. Courage, for instance, is the mean between cowardice, deficiency of courage, and recklessness, excess of courage. Generosity lies between stinginess and wasteful spending. Confidence exists between self-deprecation and arrogance. This principle of the golden mean offers invaluable guidance for modern life. In our culture of extremes, where we're encouraged to go big or go home, to work harder or party harder, Aristotle's wisdom provides a stabilizing force. He reminds us that excellence often lies not in dramatic gestures, but in finding the right balance for each situation. Consider how this applies to modern challenges. In our information age, we face the extremes of ignorance and information overload. The golden mean would suggest finding the right amount of information consumption, enough to be well-informed and capable of good decisions, but not so much that we become paralyzed or anxious. Social media use offers another example. The extremes are complete isolation from digital connection or compulsive scrolling. The virtuous mean might involve intentional, purposeful engagement that enhances rather than diminishes our real-world relationships. Aristotle emphasized that finding the mean isn't a mathematical calculation. It requires practical wisdom, which he called phronesis. This is the ability to see clearly what each situation requires and to respond appropriately. Unlike following rigid rules, practical wisdom is contextual and flexible, developed through experience and reflection. Developing practical wisdom requires what Aristotle called habituation. Virtues, he taught, are not innate talents or intellectual concepts, but habits developed through repeated practice. We become courageous by acting courageously, generous by acting generously, honest by acting honestly. This insight transforms ethics from abstract philosophy into practical training. This understanding can revolutionize how we approach personal development. Instead of trying to think our way into better behavior, Aristotle suggests we act our way into better thinking. Want to become more patient? Practice patience in small situations. Want to develop courage? Take on challenges slightly outside your comfort zone. Character change happens through consistent action, not just good intentions. Aristotle also made crucial distinctions between different types of relationships, insights that remain remarkably relevant for understanding modern social connections. He identified 3 types of friendship: friendships of utility, where people are useful to each other; friendships of pleasure, where people enjoy each other's company; and friendships of virtue, where people appreciate each other's character and encourage mutual growth. In our networked world, where we might have hundreds of social media friends but feel lonely, Aristotle's analysis offers clarity. Most online connections represent friendships of utility or pleasure, valuable but limited. Deep fulfillment comes from relationships based on mutual respect for character and shared commitment to growth. These friendships require time, vulnerability, and mutual investment that can't be maintained through digital interaction alone. Aristotle's emphasis on community also speaks to our modern condition. He famously declared that humans are political animals, not in a partisan sense, but in the deeper, meaning that we naturally form communities and find our full potential only within social relationships. Individual happiness and social health are interconnected. We cannot flourish in isolation or in dysfunctional communities. This insight challenges both extreme individualism and collectivism. We need both personal excellence and strong communities. The path to flourishing involves developing our individual capabilities while contributing to the common good. A life focused solely on personal success lacks the social dimension necessary for deep fulfillment, while losing oneself in group identity prevents the individual growth that makes genuine contribution possible. Practical application of Aristotelian ethics might involve regular reflection on the balance in different areas of your life. Are you being too cautious or too reckless in your career moves? Too harsh or too lenient with your children? Too solitary or too social in your lifestyle? The goal isn't perfect balance, but conscious awareness of these dynamics and gradual movement toward excellence. Aristotle also reminds us that human flourishing is a lifelong project, not a destination. We can't judge whether someone has lived well until their life is complete, because circumstances can change and character can develop or deteriorate over time. This perspective offers both humility about our current achievements and hope for continued growth. His vision of human flourishing encompasses all dimensions of human existence: intellectual, emotional, social, and practical. It's not about perfection, but about excellence, not about happiness as feeling, but about happiness as living fully in accordance with our deepest potential. As you consider Aristotle's insights, ask yourself, what would flourishing look like in your particular circumstances? What extremes do you tend toward? And how might you find better balance? How are you developing practical wisdom through experience and reflection? Aristotle offers not just philosophical concepts, but a blueprint for living excellently in the real world. Epicurus, the discipline of desire. From the heights of Greek philosophy, we turn to a voice that speaks from the depths of human experience. Epicurus was born a slave in ancient Rome, spent his youth in bondage, became disabled, gained his freedom, and ultimately became one of history's most influential teachers of personal freedom. His life exemplifies his central teaching that regardless of external circumstances, we always retain the power to choose our inner response. Epicurus taught a simple but revolutionary principle that forms the foundation of Stoic philosophy. Some things are within our power, while others are not. This seemingly obvious statement contains within it the key to both peace and effective action. External events, other people's behavior, natural disasters, economic fluctuations, even our own past, lie outside our direct control. But our judgments about these events, our emotional responses, and our chosen actions remain within our power. This distinction might initially seem to minimize our influence, but Epicurus reveals it as profoundly liberating. Most human suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable while neglecting what we can actually influence. We exhaust ourselves fighting traffic, other people's opinions, or past mistakes, while failing to exercise our real power over our thoughts, choices, and responses. Consider how this applies to modern anxiety and stress. Much of our mental turmoil comes from mentally rehearsing scenarios we cannot control, worrying about what others think, anticipating problems that may never occur, or ruminating about past failures. Epicurus would redirect our attention instead of trying to control these external factors. Focus on controlling your thoughts about them and your chosen responses. The discipline of desire, as Epicurus taught it, involves training ourselves to want only what is actually within our power to achieve. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up on goals, but rather shifting our fundamental orientation. Instead of, I want to be promoted, we might frame it as, I want to do excellent work and present myself well. Instead of, I want others to like me, we focus on, I want to be genuinely likable through my character and actions. This subtle shift in focus transforms our relationship with success and failure. When we attach our peace of mind to outcomes we cannot fully control, we become victims of circumstance. When we attach it to our own efforts and character, we maintain inner stability regardless of external results. Success becomes doing our best, failure becomes only failing to do our best. Epicurus illustrated this principle through the metaphor of playing roles in a drama. Life, he suggested, is like being cast in a play where you don't choose your role, but you do choose how well you perform it. You might be cast as a poor person or a rich person, a healthy person or a sick person, a leader or a follower. Excellence lies not in the role itself, but in playing whatever role is yours with integrity and skill. This perspective can transform how we handle life's inevitable challenges and disappointments. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Or how can I make this go away? We learn to ask, how can I respond to this with wisdom and character? The first questions focus on the uncontrollable. The second focuses on our real power. The practice of negative visualization, another key Stoic exercise taught by Epicurus, involves regularly contemplating potential losses, not to become pessimistic, but to cultivate gratitude for what we have and prepare mentally for life's uncertainties. By imagining the loss of health, relationships, or possessions, we both appreciate them more fully and reduce the shock if loss actually occurs. This might seem morbid in our culture that emphasizes positive thinking, but Epicurus understood that denying life's fragility makes us more vulnerable, not stronger. When we accept that everything we cherish is temporary, we love more deeply while clinging less desperately. We prepare for storms while enjoying sunshine. Epicurus also taught the discipline of judgment, the practice of examining our thoughts and beliefs, to determine whether they serve our well-being and align with reality. He observed that we suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about events. The same situation that devastates one person might energize another, depending on how they interpret and respond to it. This insight offers tremendous power for emotional regulation. When we find ourselves upset, instead of trying to change external circumstances, we can examine our thoughts. What story am I telling myself about this situation? Is this interpretation helpful? What alternative perspectives might be equally valid? Are there aspects of this situation that might actually benefit me? The practice of reframing doesn't mean denying reality or forcing false positivity, but rather recognizing that our initial interpretations are often neither complete nor helpful. By questioning our automatic thoughts, we create space for more constructive responses. Epicurus emphasized that this kind of inner work requires constant vigilance and practice. He compared it to athletic training. We must exercise our judgment just as we exercise our bodies through daily practice and gradual progression. The goal is not perfection, but steady improvement in our ability to maintain inner freedom, regardless of external circumstances. Perhaps most remarkably, Epicurus taught these principles not from a position of privilege or ease, but from intimate knowledge of human suffering. His teachings carry the authority of someone who discovered freedom within constraint, peace within turmoil, and dignity within degradation. He proves that the human spirit can triumph over any external circumstances through the disciplined cultivation of inner liberty. In practical application, Epicurus's teachings invite us to regularly assess where we're investing our mental and emotional energy. Are we focused on what we can control or what we cannot? Are we responding to situations from wisdom or from emotional reactivity? Are we accepting our current role in life's drama while performing it excellently? His voice continues to speak across centuries to anyone facing difficult circumstances. You are freer than you know. Your power is greater than you realize. Your peace depends not on what happens to you, but on how you choose to meet what happens to you. This is the wisdom of a man who found ultimate liberty in the most constraining circumstances, and who offers the same possibility to every human being willing to undertake the discipline of inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius' leadership and inner peace. In the annals of human history, few figures embody the integration of power and wisdom as remarkably as Marcus Aurelius. Here was a man who held absolute authority over the Roman Empire at its peak, commanding legions, governing millions, making decisions that shaped the Mediterranean world. Yet his most lasting contribution to humanity comes not from his political achievements, but from his private reflections on living wisely and leading with integrity. Marcus Aurelius never intended his meditations to be published. These were personal notes written often in his tent during military campaigns, reminders to himself about how to remain centered amidst the overwhelming responsibilities of leadership. That these private thoughts became one of the most influential works in Western literature speaks to their profound authenticity and universal relevance. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. This insight from Marcus Aurelius cuts through the complexity of modern life with remarkable clarity. Here was a man who had access to every luxury and pleasure the ancient world could provide. Yet he understood that genuine contentment comes from internal orientation rather than external accumulation. This perspective challenges our contemporary assumptions about success and happiness. We're conditioned to believe that more wealth, status, or possessions will bring satisfaction. Yet Marcus Aurelius, from his position of ultimate worldly success, reminds us that peace of mind depends on the quality of our thoughts and the integrity of our choices. The Emperor's Journal reveals the same anxieties, frustrations, and challenges that ordinary people face, and the same solutions. One of his most powerful insights concerns the nature of time and mortality. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Marcus Aurelius was acutely aware of life's brevity and used this awareness not to create anxiety, but to inspire authentic living. Death, in his view, is simply part of the natural order, like leaves falling from trees or waves returning to the sea. This acceptance of mortality transforms how we prioritize our time and energy. When we truly understand that our days are numbered, we become more selective about what deserves our attention. Petty grievances, social comparisons, and trivial pursuits lose their power to disturb our peace. We focus instead on what Marcus Aurelius called what is essential: relationships, character development, contribution to the common good, and alignment with our deepest values. Marcus Aurelius faced enormous challenges during his reign: plague, war, political intrigue, personal losses. Yet his writings reveal a man committed to responding to difficulties with equanimity and wisdom rather than reactivity. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This wasn't mere philosophy for him, it was daily practice tested under the most extreme circumstances. His approach to handling criticism and opposition offers valuable lessons for modern leadership and personal relationships. How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. This isn't advice to become indifferent to others, but rather to maintain primary focus on our own conduct and choices, rather than being constantly distracted by others' behavior. In our hyper-connected age, where social media makes everyone's opinions immediately visible, Marcus Aurelius's counsel feels especially relevant. The Emperor reminds us that our peace and effectiveness depend on maintaining clear boundaries between what we can influence, our own actions, and what we cannot, others' reactions. This doesn't mean avoiding feedback or collaboration, but rather approaching them from a centered place rather than anxious reactivity. Marcus Aurelius also offers profound insights about leadership that apply whether we're managing others or simply managing our own lives. He understood leadership as service rather than domination, viewing his imperial power as an opportunity to contribute to human welfare rather than simply advance his own interests. What brings no benefit to the hive cannot bring benefit to the bee. This perspective transforms how we approach any position of influence or responsibility. Instead of asking, "What can I get from this role?" we learn to ask, "How can this role serve something larger than myself?" Whether we're parents, team members, community volunteers, or business leaders, this shift from self-serving to service-oriented thinking creates more fulfilling and effective engagement. The Emperor's reflections on dealing with difficult people reveal sophisticated emotional intelligence. Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. Rather than focusing on others' flaws and irritating behaviors, he trained himself to look for their virtues and contributions. This practice doesn't require us to become naive about others' limitations, but it does shift our default perception in a direction that serves both our peace of mind and our relationships. Marcus Aurelius also understood the importance of accepting people as they are, rather than trying to force them to meet our expectations. Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest. This metaphor suggests that we can maintain our inner stability while allowing others their emotional reactions and different perspectives. Perhaps most remarkably, Marcus Aurelius managed to maintain philosophical perspective while dealing with overwhelming practical responsibilities. His meditations show a man constantly reminding himself to stay present, to focus on what really matters, and to approach each day with fresh energy. Rather than getting lost in regret about the past or anxiety about the future, confine yourself to the present, he wrote, anticipating modern mindfulness practices by centuries. For someone managing an empire, this focus on presence rather than getting lost in the magnitude of responsibilities was essential for both sanity and effectiveness. The same principle applies to our modern challenges, whether we're managing households, projects, or organizations. The practical application of Marcus Aurelius's insights involves regular reflection and self-correction. Like the emperor writing in his tent, we benefit from taking time to examine our thoughts, recommit to our values, and prepare our minds for the day's challenges. His example shows us that wisdom isn't about achieving perfect peace, but about consistently returning to philosophical principles when we inevitably get thrown off balance by life's demands. Marcus Aurelius leaves us with a powerful example of someone who wielded enormous external power, while maintaining focus on the only power that ultimately matters, the power over our own thoughts, choices, and responses. His legacy reminds us that true leadership begins with self-leadership, and that the greatest victory is the victory over our own reactive tendencies. Seneca, Time and the Art of Living. Lucius Annaeus Seneca presents us with perhaps the most paradoxical figure in ancient philosophy. A man who accumulated vast wealth while preaching the dangers of materialism, who advised emperors while advocating simplicity, who lived at the center of Roman power while developing profound insights about what truly matters in human existence. These contradictions, rather than diminishing his teachings, make them more relevant to those of us trying to live wisely. Within the complexities and compromises of modern life, Seneca's most famous insight strikes at the heart of how we experience and use our most precious resource, time. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. This observation, written nearly 2,000 years ago, feels remarkably contemporary. In our age of smartphones, social media, and endless entertainment options, we often find ourselves wondering where our time went. Despite having more leisure and convenience than any generation in history, Seneca's analysis of time goes deeper than simple time management advice. He distinguished between mere existence and truly living, between being busy and being productive, between filling time and using time meaningfully. Life is long enough if you know how to use it, he wrote, challenging us to examine not just how we schedule our hours, but how consciously we inhabit them. The Roman philosopher identified several ways we commonly waste time that remain strikingly relevant today. First, we lose time to the past through regret and excessive nostalgia. Second, we sacrifice the present to anxiety about the future. Third, we surrender our time to other people's priorities instead of our own values. Finally, we fritter away precious hours on activities that neither develop our character nor contribute to our genuine well-being. Seneca's solution wasn't to become rigid or joyless about time use, but to develop what he called presence of mind, the ability to remain conscious of how we're spending our life's currency. This involves regular reflection. Am I living this day or just getting through it? Are my activities aligned with my deepest values? What would I regret not doing if this were my last day? This perspective on time connects to Seneca's broader philosophy of living, according to nature and reason rather than being driven by impulse and social pressure. He advocated for what we might now call mindful living, making conscious choices about how to spend our energy and attention, rather than defaulting to habit or external demands. One of Seneca's most practical teachings concerns our relationship with wealth and possessions. Having been extremely wealthy himself, he understood both the benefits and the dangers of material abundance. His advice wasn't to live in poverty, but to maintain inner independence from external possessions. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. This insight speaks powerfully to our consumer culture, where we're constantly encouraged to believe that the next purchase will bring satisfaction. Seneca suggests instead that true security comes from needing less rather than having more. This doesn't mean living uncomfortably, but rather distinguishing between genuine needs and manufactured desires, between purchases that truly enhance life and those that merely provide temporary distraction. Seneca practiced what he called voluntary discomfort, occasionally choosing simple food, basic clothing, or uncomfortable conditions to remind himself that happiness doesn't depend on luxury. This practice builds both gratitude for normal comforts and confidence that we can handle difficulties if they arise. In our comfortable modern context, this might translate to occasionally choosing the stairs over the elevator, walking instead of driving, or eating simply instead of extravagantly. The philosopher's insights about dealing with adversity remain among the most practical ever written. He understood that suffering is inevitable in human life, but that our response to difficulties determines whether they become sources of growth or mere causes of misery. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, he observed, recognizing that loss and change, while painful, also create opportunities for renewal and development. Seneca's approach to setbacks involved what we might now call cognitive reframing, the practice of finding alternative perspectives on challenging situations. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" he trained himself to ask, "How can I use this situation to develop wisdom, patience, or compassion?" This shift in questioning transforms obstacles from mere problems into potential teachers. His letters to his friend Lucilius reveal someone constantly practicing self-examination and emotional regulation. When facing political uncertainty, personal losses, or health challenges, Seneca worked to maintain philosophical perspective. Rather than being overwhelmed by immediate emotions, this wasn't about suppressing feelings, but about not being controlled by them. One of his most valuable insights concerns our relationships with others, particularly how to handle criticism and conflict. Seneca advised maintaining inner calm regardless of others' behavior toward us. You will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing everything with logic. This doesn't mean becoming cold or disconnected, but rather responding from wisdom rather than reactivity. Seneca also wrote extensively about friendship and human relationships, understanding them as essential for flourishing, while warning against the ways relationships can become sources of anxiety and manipulation. True friendship, in his view, involves mutual support for each other's character development rather than mere entertainment or utility. Perhaps most importantly, Seneca integrated his philosophy with active engagement in the world. Unlike philosophers who retreated from public life, he remained involved in politics, business, and social relationships while maintaining his philosophical practice. This integration makes his insights particularly valuable for those of us who must find wisdom within the demands of careers, families, and civic responsibilities. His legacy reminds us that wisdom isn't about perfect consistency or withdrawal from life's complexities, but about continuing to seek truth and goodness even when we fall short of our ideals. Seneca's contradictions make him more relatable, not less credible. He shows us what it looks like to pursue philosophical living as real people in real circumstances. The practical application of Seneca's teachings might involve regular reflection on how we're using our time, periodic simplification of our possessions and commitments, conscious practice of gratitude for what we have, and development of emotional resilience through cognitive reframing and voluntary challenges. His voice continues to speak to anyone trying to live meaningfully within the constraints and opportunities of ordinary human existence.